Okay, so can everyone see the sort of title slide that says running TT events with live results?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. All right. So the agenda then, so this is really the bits that we're going to be covering, as I just mentioned. Why live results important, overview of result sheet, and then we'll go into the demo in terms of how to do things. The first bit about why live results are important is, I thought it was worth including this, because when result sheet, where it came from, it was really born out of the whole COVID lockdown process. And when we couldn't go, as a rider, I'm a sort of time trialist myself, we go back to the car park after the race, and then we obviously couldn't go into HQ. And then obviously everyone wanted to know how they were doing, and no one really had any way of knowing how other people were doing, which is where, wouldn't it be great if everyone had the results on their mobile phone? That's kind of where that conversation started. But the people I spoke to, when I started to test whether this was a good idea or not, fell into two camps. There were some people that said, absolutely, that's the way forward. And there were other people that were saying, well, I'm quite happy to, carry on with a flip chart in the HQ and that type of thing. So I think either is fine, but it's worth, I think, outlining why I think they're important based on the feedback I got from other people. So in terms of there's really three parts to it. And you might have found this from your results or from the events that you've been running. The expectations of riders I found has increased over the last couple of years. I've probably been riding for about 5 years. And I found that with the likes of Strava and Spindage and things like that, people really want to know when they roll into the car park, they want to know how they've done, not only for their own feet, but how they've done against their peers. So there's an expectation that they instantly want to know, how they're getting on. I found that then has a compounding effect, because then that creates banter. It was creating banter in the car park during the lockdowns. And people started to have chat about how they've done compared to other people based on the official results. And that was then adding to the overall experience. When HQs opened again, that then banter sort of moved into the HQ is what I found. And then it's just creating this overall better experience. So as a rider going in to be able to go in, see how I've done with my peers, I think the worry from the people that didn't seem to get excited about sort of live results tended to worry that people would just roll into the car park, check their phone and disappear. And I've sort of found the opposite, really. There are certainly some people that do that, but some people come in, check their phone and then go into HQ, have a bit of coffee and a bit of cake, and then sort of start to discuss it, maybe around a bigger view of the results board. So it creates this better experience, I think, for more riders. And so there's kind of the experience side of things, and then there's the admin side of things, which is down to how much work is involved in actually running one of these events. So these are the things that have come out based on the people I've spoken to, and the benefits of having this type of app basically running at your event. The first one is time queries can be resolved on the day. The times when you collect those results and then you post them out 3 days later, and then all the riders will query their times, which creates a whole sort of admin cycle. Certainly when you're sort of uploading things to the CTT website, goes away almost straight away. If someone's got a problem with their time, they look at it on their phone, they've got a query, they go to the event organizer and they can fix it there and then, which just saves a whole load of headache later on. The fact that you've then got a shared app, so the idea there, which I'll explain in a second, is that you've got people who are with the timekeeper potentially just keying in the results. This whole requirement for having lots of people to make this thing work, so someone who is taking screenshots or sending text messages from one phone to another and then keying something to a spreadsheet or writing something up on a board to deliver the results goes away completely, which is useful when you're trying to get volunteers, because the number of volunteers you need drops. And then obviously, if you're now capturing things electronically, being able to do things like on-the-fly calculations becomes much easier. So things like, what the standings overall, VTTA standards, obviously a big one. Being able to instantly say how you've done against standard or their latest calculation. Also age group wins and things like that make prize giving much easier. And then the last bit is, because you're capturing the results in an electronic format, actually sending results back to the CTT afterwards is much easier. So the ideal being that you don't have to rekey anything, which then reduces, again, the amount of admin that you need to do and the amount of errors that go into the process. So that's an admin reduction benefit, which is a huge one. And then if you've seen your emails today, there's another bit, which is being able to import start sheets directly from the CTT, which went live today, which I'll show you tonight. That's also a big part of that as well. And the last bit, which is kind of a soft one, which I didn't really appreciate to begin with, but actually being able to generate awareness for events that people aren't at is actually quite an interesting debate, because if you actually send out the link to the live results, the amount of people I have conversations with that are actually watching the results of these events when they're not there is quite amazing, actually. And then you get this kind of banter thing going on. I don't know if you found it from your own results, if you've done this. I mean, certainly on the A3 CRG stuff, it's kind of, you guys use it very heavily. You know, I'm watching the results of these events come in and I'm not even there. And then being able to share these links around, it sort of generates this buzz around your event for people that can't necessarily ride it or attend, which just helps the sport overall, I think. So it creates this broader buzz and helps, I think, promote future events as well. So you can actually use it as part of the event promotion process. So I think these are kind of the three things which came out. So the rider expectations one is people, if you go to a time trial these days and you don't have the ability to get your results on the day, I think people feel slightly, I find that personally a little bit frustrating because I want to know, you know, because I'm impatient. The admin reduction piece is the middle one. That's obviously a big one because you want to be able to do more with less. And then the softer one about generating awareness around events is kind of especially with tie it with social media, it becomes more and more important as time goes on. So those are really the three things. I don't think anyone got any questions on any of that, or sort of thoughts on those before I sort of jump into result sheet specifics.
Yep.
No, makes sense. Okay, cool. Right, so this is basically result sheet. So these are really the moving components, and then I'll flip to a demonstration. I'll show it to you. So there's really a few separate parts which are all used in slightly different parts of the process. The desktop, so result sheet runs in a browser on your desktop, your iPad, your mobile phone, whatever it may be. So you don't need to install an app on your phone to use it. It will run in your mobile web browser. If you're using it on your desktop or your iPad, you're just running it inside the app on that device. And the desktop or stroke iPad, so the sort of working screen, is really where people set up their events. So you'd create your event typically in there, set up your start sheet in there ahead of the event. You can actually set up your events on the mobile phone as well. So you can do all that, that's fine. The only thing you can't do is import start sheets on there because the screen's just too small to do it properly. But you can actually set up a club event from scratch on your phone in a village hall, you know, on the day, and it would all still work fine. So the idea with the desktop is sort of pre-event, that gets everything configured. During the event, the mobile web app is really used when people enter the results as the event unfolds. So the way that is normally done is, what seems to work best is you have the timekeeper still with their stopwatches. So they're still the official recorder of the time, and someone sitting next to them, which they've normally got anyway, like a spotter, normally is the one that actually enters the results typically. So, you know, when they get a moment where they've got a quiet part where maybe some of the riders have not passing the line for a little bit, they just then quickly tap in the results based on what the timekeeper's written down. So what we found is that the timekeeper doesn't do both typically. They're still with their stopwatches or whatever it is they're using. So their process doesn't really change, but what they're doing is when they've got a bit of downtime, they then tell someone else who can then type it in. That's just one way of doing it. I mean, it's really down to whatever works best for you guys, really, but that seems to be the most common one at the moment. And then on the output side of things, so this is the actual results themselves, there's really two parts, which I'll show you. There is an HQ report, which is one designed for larger screens. So if you look at the results link on a computer, it will show you the 2-column version with men on the left and women on the right. That's really designed for having larger displays at village halls and things like that. And then you have the mobile view, which is what people look at. So as a rider, if I come in and have a look on my phone, I'll get a much simpler version designed for that screen that I can then, you know, scroll around and have a look at. So as results are entered in via the mobile web app, they will then update in real time on both of those. So if you sit and watch it and another rider comes in and they beat your time, you'll flip down the list and the rider will come in above you. And also things like VTTA calculations and things are also done in real time. So if you're running a VTTA type event and you want to order the people based on how they've achieved against standard, you would just select the standard option and it would then do exactly the same in real time. So that's really the.
So
Yeah, sure.
May I ask a question?
Sure, yeah.
If you had like 180 riders, I think technically that's three lots of 60, I believe, but whatever it is, can the app cover that in the HQ? Can you show that many riders?
You can. So the way the HQ report works, I might be able to show this, is depending on, I think it shows about 20 rows, and then as the time starts to come in for the people who are off the screen, it will start to scroll.
Right.
So the way it works, the kind of feeling is you're sort of, if you can picture yourself standing in front of a projected screen with your coffee, and you're, as a rider, you're waiting, and as you scroll up, you will then appear depending on where you are, and it will sort of scroll, and as it gets to the bottom, it will then jump back to the top and start again. So that's the way it does it.
So that's my last novice question, I hope. So when we put these results back to CTT, I haven't done an event yet, but presumably if they're in CT's website and you're entering those events, you're entering maybe 3 separate events sometimes.
Yep.
Does that get dealt with as well? So when you...
It does, yeah. It's a good question. So yeah, it's typically that things like road bikes and time trial bikes, sometimes you set them up separately. Exactly, yep. So yes, it will cater for that, and I'll show you how to do that. Yeah.
Lovely.
Yeah. So really the skills required, just to kind of summarize this bit, if you look at the bottom, it's actually not great. You know, you don't really need an awful lot of skills to be able to do this. So to create an event and actually use ResultSheet as an event organizer, it's basic laptop skills. You know, being able to create an event, upload a start sheet, that type of thing. Not complicated. Results, actually getting the results in on the day, is literally a case of having someone use the mobile app, which takes about 2 minutes to learn. And I'll show you that as well. That's pretty straightforward. And actually setting up ResultSheet for HQ, you know, so back at the village hall, if that's what you're choosing to do, is basically, again, basic laptop skills. So being able to plug in a laptop, set a projector, connect it to the laptop. You will need a data connection, so being able to either connect it to a Wi-Fi network or tether it with your mobile phone, depending on how what facilities are at the HQ. That's basically all you need. So you're setting up the laptop to be able to connect to the internet, and then everything else basically runs from there. So there's kind of 3 scenarios really for types of result sheet events, depending on the type of event you're running. So I call them bronze, silver, and gold. We've got some clubs that actually run the time trials literally out of a lay-by, which is fine. And all they do is they've got the QR code, which is the link to the live results, printed out on their sign-on table. So as a rider, you come in, you sign in, you point your phone at the QR code, and that's it. And that's all they need. So they've got nowhere else to project. The silver one is really where you've got what's called the limited HQ, which is really where you've got somewhere to set up a computer, but you don't have like a large wall or screen or something to put a large display up. So you've got like a laptop or a screen running in the corner. It's basically the same as the bronze one, except you've connected your computer to a Wi-Fi connection or something like that, and actually just left it running in the corner with the pointing at the live results. And then the last one is really what the gold one, which is really the best one, really, where you've actually got the equipment like a projector or something like that to actually connect to the laptop, so people come in and they can see the results on a nice big display at the end of the village hall or something. So you don't need a lot of tech to actually get the live result experience onto your into your events. So we've got people like, say, club events, and they're just literally entering the start sheet as the people are signing on, sign on the line straight away. And then at the other end, you've got people that are running the larger events, which have got the projectors and things at HQ. So that takes a little bit more planning, but it's still not complicated. That's really the last slide on that before I jump into the demo. So is there anything else? Any other questions on equipment or skills? Seem pretty straightforward.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay, cool. All right. So this is basically what I'll show you then on the demo. Really 5 things. Obviously creating an event in ResultSheet in terms of how you do that. We'll talk about the QR code, which have obviously grown in popularity on the back of the whole COVID thing. So that's actually proved very useful in this scenario. Setting up the HQ report, so that's the bigger report running at back at the HQ. How you enter results, and then exporting the results at the end for things like sending back to the CTT. Those are really the main bits. So I will I'm going to stop this screen share for a second and then share my next bit just to make sure this is working. So I'll just stop it that one now. Okay. So can you now see the result sheet website?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I've got 4. This is basically just a browser now. I'm just pointing at the result sheet website. There's a few things running across the top. So I've got the website. I've also got the. I'm going to drag that down a little bit because Zoom's hiding my thing. I've got result sheet running in a couple of other tabs, and I've got some example reports on. So I'm logged into result sheet as a demo user, just there. Actually, I can drag that back up now. And then I've got the public list of result sheets. If you've had a look at the result sheet website, there's actually a central list of all the events. So when you actually create and publish a list, it appears on the website. So that's my example there, which I'll show you in a second. And then I've actually got the mobile version of the mobile view of the results also running in a tab. So as we build up and create the events, then you'll be able to see these things populate. So just going to drag that down again. Zoom keeps popping over the tabs annoyingly. Right. So the first thing is when you log in to ResultSheet, to set up an account, you just go to the website and sign up with your email address. Sarah, as you said, yeah, just a personal email address is absolutely fine. The only thing it's worth mentioning is it doesn't work with Hotmail addresses. Hotmail seems to filter out emails from a whole bunch of different cloud-based web sort of email services. So it'll tell you if you're trying to use a Hotmail address, you should try and use something other than that because it won't accept the emails. So you'd sign up and then your result sheet will create a demo event for you, which is basically one with some example riders and things that you can play around with, and you can't publish it, but you also, that means you can't break anything either. So it kind of helps you sort of get used to it. And then as you start to create your events, you get presented with a list of events that you have created, events that you manage. So maybe someone else has created the event and assigned it to you, or events that you are the timekeeper for, or the entry, the time recorder for. So in here, these are just ones that I've created. You'll notice some of them are red and green. The red ones are ones that are not published. And what that means is they're not viewable by anybody else. And the green ones are the ones that I have decided to publish, which means they are then available on that public list, which I'll go back to in a second, so that other people can view them. So the idea is you set your event up, make sure you're happy with the start sheet, and when you're ready, you then publish it. It then becomes visible so that other people can view it both before the event and also during and after. So I've got one here called the training demonstration one, which I'll just bring up. So if I just click on that, I get presented with a few different options, which we'll go through in a second. This is basically everything you can do with an event. And I get presented with all the options because I created it and it's mine. If I'm a timekeeper and I have been assigned this event to actually enter the results, what will happen is I'll only get the top 2. So it will only show me things that I'm allowed to do to the event. So you can, so Sarah, your question earlier about sharing logins.
Yeah.
If you set up your own events, so say you're 50,
yeah,
next weekend, you would. I think the ideal one is you'd set it up as yourself, create the event yourself, and then you would then assign maybe the timekeeper to Kathy,
yeah,
and something like that, so that Kathy gets a very simple view, so she just knows exactly where to go. Whoever's going to be entering the results, that's fine. If you share logins, then basically everyone will have access to everything that you can do.
Yeah.
So both are fine, but it really depends on how you want to do it as a club, really.
So
most people see.
As DCB likes to keep an eye on everything, I could share, I could assign him as a manager or whatever you like to call the top level if you wanted to have a poke around.
Absolutely. So you could sign up with your login. You would then could assign DCB as a manager, which means he can basically do everything you can then do.
Yeah.
It's just that you both have the same access.
Yeah. And
then you would assign Kathy or whoever it is that's going to be entering the results as the time recorder.
Yeah.
And then basically everyone is just getting the piece of functionality they need, which basically helps with making sure that no one makes any mistakes. They don't click on something shouldn't, and also
Yeah.
just keeps their experience really easy. So they only get presented with options that are relevant to them.
Brilliant,
Yeah.
thanks.
Okay, so if I show you an event first, I'm just going to click on edit event here. Because I've dragged this down, I'll scroll down. But so these are the options that you have on an event. So when you create an event, I won't create one from scratch because I'll use this one, but all these will be blank. So you'll be basically entering, you give your event a name, a date and time when the event is, you give it a distance. The distance is important because if you leave the distance blank, it will actually ask you for a number. The reason it's doing that is for the VTTA piece. So it does VTTA calculations for the standard distances, so 10, 25, 30, 50, and 100, I think. So that's why it needs the distance. If you have a non-standard distance in there, then it will just basically switch off the VTTA piece. You won't be able to do that. Obviously, you've got course code, link to further information, which is basically just a web link to where your event is. So if it's a club event, you might want to send it back to your club website page. If it's the CTT event, which is what this example is doing, maybe go to the event on the CTT website, HQ address, etc. The competitions piece. So Leon, this is one of your questions about the multiple events inside the CTT. This is how this is done. So I'll call them event competitions, and we've got the example of road bikes and TT bikes. So within ResultSheet, you can have one event that's got lots of, like, one start sheet basically, but each of those people could essentially be in like a competition. So i.e. one could be a time trial event, one could be road bikes. When they've entered those events, it might be that they've entered different events on the CTT website. So when you import them, you basically tag them as they come in into the competition they're associated with. So it's grouping them all together. When you export them at the other end, you can then break them out again. So that's how that's doing that. And then we've got the different users here. So it's like the organizer name, email address, which is like on the CTT website. And the last bit down here. So this is this is where the event manager is. That's where you would assign DCB, and the event timekeeper, that's where you go to Kathy, if that makes sense. So that's
So if you didn't want someone else managing it, you leave it blank.
It will default to you. You just leave it as yourself. Yeah.
Okay.
And the last bit, the reason this is just disappearing off the screen, that says sort of save and cancel, in case you can't see that. The last bit worth mentioning is this concept of actual time and watch time. So when you enter results, you can do it in two ways. You can actually enter the time that rider achieved, which is, if it's a evening 10 and they did a 19:58, if it's on actual time, you would enter 19:58. If it's being done on watch time, what that's doing is we take the value that's come from the timekeeper's watch, which is based on what time they started and that type of thing, and it will automatically work out the actual time that rider did. So that's what start time is for, the intervals. So based on their rider number and the time they started, and then when you enter the time that's on the timekeeper's stopwatch, it will then work out the actual time for you. So it depends on the preference of your timekeeper, whether they want to enter or give the person recording the times what's on their stopwatch, or whether they actually want to give them the actual result. That's what those two options are for. Does that make sense on the actual watch time? Because not everyone gets that straight away. Most people tend to use actual time actually, but.
Okay. So is Kathy working on watch time?
She does, yeah.
Yeah, I thought she did.
All the time, yeah.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Yeah. Okay. So that's that. So when you'd set up an event, so basically you would click the create event button and you would populate that information and click save, which is just off the bottom of the screen there. And that's basically it. So any questions on event creation or what those fields are doing? Nope. Okay, cool. Right, so now we'll get to the next bit. So if I go back to my main screen, I'll bring up the training demo event again. When you create the event for the first time, it takes you automatically to the Manage Start Sheet section. So I'll go to Manage Start Sheet there. And it presents you with this kind of screen and this pop-up. So I'll get rid of the pop-up for a second so you can see the screen. This is where you actually manage the riders. So you've got two options at this point. You can actually manually enter riders into the start sheet by entering them across the top, or this is where you import the the start sheet itself. So if I was to enter a rider, I'll just do one and then I'll delete it. So rider number 1, it gives me automatically works out the start time, which I can override based on what their bib number is. That was me. 0 male. I'm 50, believe it or not, and I'm on time trial bikes. And then I add the rider, and it appears at the bottom. So if you can picture yourself at HQ now running a sign on the line event, that is how you do that. So you would sort of create the event typically before the event itself, so you don't have to manually create that, while people are signing on. And then as they're coming in and paying their £5 to actually ride, you would just basically add them in using your computer or the iPad or even your phone if you want to, as they're coming in, and you're basically populating the start sheet as you go along. Not all these fields are mandatory. So, we've got some clubs that don't capture age, for example, so you don't have to enter ages and things. You don't have to have event competitions, and also the club can be, if it doesn't recognize the club, it will sort of automatically add it to the list. So as you use it more, it will start to present you with the options that you use the most. But that's basically how you run the sign on the line events. Any questions on that piece? It's pretty straightforward. That it's more the importing the start sheets, which takes a little bit more getting used to.
We're straightforward so far.
Yeah, all good. Yeah. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to delete that one there. We'll start again. Right. Because it's now my options have dropped off the screen, I'm just going to have to go in again. Give me 2 seconds. I've got the zoom bar across the top, and it means I can't get to my whole buttons. Right. So manage start sheet again. Okay. So if you notice, this box popped up last time. So you mentioned you've created your event, it's gone into the manage start sheet button, and it now gives you these options. Says now you can upload your start sheet. And this is where, when you're running an open, the integration with the CTT comes in. So this is the new bit that's been assigned today. So you've got 2 options really to upload start sheets. You can upload a file, like an Excel file, in a particular format, which I won't go into today. It's pretty straightforward. It presents you with a template. You can put your riders in there from the CTT if you want to, or whatever source you're using for your start sheet, and upload it that way. But this is probably the one that's going to get used most for opens. So if I click the upload from the CTT website button, what it's going to do is take me to this screen, and you'll notice I'm actually going to drag up my screen again because I will need the buttons at the top for this one, right? So you'll notice, and actually there is a bunch of A3 CRG ones there. So as part of this demo, Sarah, what it's doing is bringing in events that are on the same day as the event I've created. So I created an event for the 15th of June, just for this example. And the logic here is result sheet saying, right, what events are on the CTT website that are on the 15th of June that have got a start sheet uploaded? That's
so mine will have time trial and tandems.
Exactly right. So I tested
one tandem.
yeah, exactly. I did test it on that as well, so that's fine. So you'll
I saw that on your demo, in your email. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. So, so this is where you basically now, as an event organizer, would say, right, these are the events that are applicable to me. So, what I'm going to do, I wanted to show it uploading, but I didn't want to do it too much because it take a few minutes to upload. So I'm going to pick 2 which I know are, I think it gives me about 18 or 19 riders and are relevant to the process. I think road bike women, I think was one of them. I'll write these down. Yeah. Sorry, road bike men, beg your pardon. Road bike men. So I'm going to say that one. And when it says which competition do you want to attach it to, I'm going to attach that to the road bike competition. And then the other one was TT bike women. And I'm going to say that's going to be TT bikes. And what you'll notice is this button at the bottom here that says upload start sheets from selected events is now blue. It was grey before because it means you wouldn't upload it, but now it's got everything it needs to pull in these start sheets. So if I now click upload from selected events, it's probably take about 20 or 30 seconds just to do it because it's doing a few calculations behind. So it's now pulling in the start sheets from the CTT website into ResultSheet, so it's then ready to have results entered against it.
So when it shows you this list of all the events on that date that you've created your event for, are they events with the same distance, or are they just events on that date?
Just the events on the date.
Okay.
We weren't quite sure how far to take it, because so we thought we've gone with events on the date with a start sheet uploaded. So in order for this to work, you obviously need to have uploaded your start sheet to the CTT and had it accepted. So so it appears on the rider list. As soon as you've got that, it will appear in this list. Yeah. So what you'll notice now is that actually the riders from those two events that we have selected have now appeared in the start sheet. There's no spreadsheets anymore, no fiddling around with files and things like that. It's all come in nice and easily. And it will work for, I've tested on, it will work for any size of event basically. So if you've got a really large event with 5 competitions and several hundred riders, you just tick the relevant event, make a cup of tea, and it'll pull them all in, and then they're all ready to go. So it's a pretty straightforward process now to get it up and running. So what I'm going to do next is I'm now going to show you what that looks like on the report. So any questions on the managing of the start sheet piece? Yeah. Okay. So what I'm going to do now is at the bottom, I'm going to drag this down again so I can get to the top of my tabs. So annoying. There we go. Okay. So if I go to this tab again, so this is my public list. And you'll notice that our demo event is not on here. So at the moment, we haven't published the event. So if I go back to the event now, and I publish it using the publish event button at the bottom, and then go back to that list, you'll notice that our training demo event has actually now appeared in the list. And what it's done is there's an information link here on the right hand side. So that's coming from that. So if I click that, it will probably take me to the, so it takes me to the Goodwood example that we were using. I'll go back to the public list. If I now tap it like that, it now takes me to the HQ report for that event. So from an event setup perspective, the event is now ready for results to be entered. So you literally create your event, upload your start sheet, and that's it. So imagine we're back in HQ, you'd set up your laptop, you go to the public event list, you'd select the event you've published, you put that into your projector, and then literally you leave it there, and it will just leave it running. And as the results start to come in, it'll start to tick up in real time. On the mobile view, I might need to refresh this actually if it hasn't refreshed. It can be a bit fiddly, this one. Give me 2 seconds. It's a bit of a fudge here trying to get you to see mobile views on here. So give me 2 seconds. Hide that again. Okay, so it's a bit small, but if you can picture this running on your mobile phone, this is what it looks like on a phone pointing to the same link. So the link is the same. It just says I'm looking at it from a mobile phone, so I'll show you this version instead. And there I can select things like I only want to see the road bike categories. I want to see TT bikes. I only want to see men or women, or I can break it down by age group. So if I'm looking at, I'm only interested in the road bike competition, I'll select road bikes, and it will hide all the time trials, all the time trialists. Same with TT bikes. If I'm interested in seeing the result for the women event, say female only, it'll only show me those, etc., etc. So this is actually quite powerful. This as a means of sort of being able to see how well you've done against your peers before you go back to HQ to look at the big report. So those are the 2 reports in action. So if I go back to now enter the results, go back to here, and then I'll bring up the demo again and go to the enter results screen. So this is the view. So this is really designed to be used on mobile phones, which is why it's quite long and thin. This is the view that people see when they're entering the results. So the people that sit with the timekeepers. So again, it's the same list of people. And if I was to enter a result for someone, I would tap the rider that's just crossed the line. So I say, okay, David's come across. I say, well, David did a 1957. Click save, and it goes in here. If I now view it on, on there, we can see that David has appeared as a 1957 across the top.
You'd be pleased with that.
Yeah, it's a fast course. And then if I look at the mobile view, 1957 there. If I pick, let's say Lucy. Lucy's very quick, so she did an 1856. Same thing. So Lucy's appearing in the women's column over there, and also on here. So you'll notice that the default view on the mobile is actually done by time. But if I said I'm only interested in the women's results, I would just select female, and it would basically hide the men, and we can see that Lucy's winning the female competition.
Do it in fastest order.
I'm sorry, say that again.
Does it do it in the fastest order? So the quickest time at the top, yeah.
Quickest time at the top,
Yeah,
exactly.
okay,
Yeah.
cool.
So if I do, so let's say, so 1856. So if someone comes in, let's say 1904. Let's put someone in at 1904. We would expect them to appear between those two. So if we say that Harry is very quick, so he's done 1904. If we go to the HQ version, we can see Harry's jumped to the top of the men's list on the left. And then in the mobile version, Harry's in second place between the two. And the nice thing about it is it's real time. You don't need to refresh the browser or anything. So certainly with HQ, you would just literally leave that up and running. And as the times come in, these things will automatically reorder themselves. DNFs and DNSs, things like that. So if we say, let's say Rowena, she didn't finish. So we just say DNF, and what that does is that will put Rowena down at the bottom as a DNF. So they are all still on there, but they just move to the bottom of the results.
You have people, like I already have somebody sending their apologies for Sunday. Can you add them in at this stage?
Yeah, that's what exactly. So let's
So
do
yeah,
one of those now.
just do exactly this. Yeah.
Exactly that. So if we say, let's say Adam Hughes, there's Adam on number 13. So let's say he's a DNSA. So we'd say Adam Hughes, DNSA, and then we go back to that, DNSA, and exactly the same on the mobile version. They'll just be off the bottom of the mobile version. So it's quite a neat way actually to, as they're coming in, if you want to give people an idea of who isn't riding, if you sent out the link and they want to know who isn't riding, you know, it's part of the generating the awareness and the buzz leading into the event, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Especially if you get like a favorite that doesn't ride or is DNSA'd, then all of a sudden that changes everything, doesn't it?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So that's basically how it works. So this is the result entry bit. So again, that's if you assign an event a timekeeper, that's the only view they really see, and that's normally done via their mobile phone. So any questions on the result entry bit, and I'll just show you how to configure the HQ report, because there's a few other options on there. Make sense? Okay. Right, so let's go back to HQ. Okay, so on this report, there's a few options here which you can configure. So at the bottom, it says results will auto refresh and scroll, tap the report options. If I click that, what you'll find is there's a few things that will appear. So the QR code, which I'll come on to last, that's the bit of the way to get the link to the people with their mobile phones. The auto scroll is the option, Leon, that we discussed, where if this is a long start sheet, as it goes off, it will start to then automatically scroll. It's basically scrolled, waits about 15, 20 seconds, scrolls to the next batch, waits, and that's the way it works. You can switch off the auto scrolling, which is useful if you're at the end of your event and you just want it sitting at the top, you know, top 5 riders, etc. You just switch the scrolling off. That's what that's for. And the other thing is the show VTTA standard. So because this is a 10-mile TT, it will now, this might be some crazy numbers that come up here because obviously we put some really fast times in. So if I just say show standards, what you'll see is actually the columns shift slightly. So you still have the actual column in, but then it gives you their result on standard. So David Robbins, 754, and then it was 958 for Lucy, 956, sorry, for Lucy. What you'll also notice is that when people don't apply, the people that aren't over 40, so the non-vets, will start to fall to the bottom of the list. So it will bring the people on standard to the top, but you still have like the seniors and the juniors and so on still in there, but they will then fall to the bottom of the list because it's less relevant for the VTTA view. Does that make sense on the VTTA piece? So literally the VTTA is, if you're running a VTTA event, you would go in, select VTTA standard, and that's it. If you wanted to switch it off, you can just switch it off and it'll go back to results. And it's the same on the mobile. There's a tick box which says show VTTA.
And if you wanted one list, just to, if you were giving prizes, on standard, is that where that competition filter comes into it, or is that the different competitions?
Yeah, so depending on what your competitions are, so at the moment, you would sort of use this screen. So if you said you're do it on standard, so I'll just bring up your standards. Yeah. So let's say you're giving prizes on 1, 2, 3 on standard.
Yes.
It would be 1, 2, 3 men, 1, 2, 3 women would just be the top people there.
Oh, right.
If you was, yeah, so you're sort of using the results, which is what they did at the VTTA National 100. If you were doing it by competition, you could say, I've got no idea what this is going to do actually, because I don't know if the road bike numbers are going to be. So yeah, so interesting. You say, well, actually, I've got 1, 2, 3 on standard for road bikes. You can have 1, 2, 3 on standard for e-bikes.
But it won't combine men and women.
Not overall. It would do it if you wanted to actually get the information. You'd actually do that using your mobile phone, because you can get the list on your phone. So it's kind of this, the HQ report is really designed to be sort of running all the time. And then depending on how you're set up, you then choose to use the reports as kind of your summary bit at the end. Yeah. So the mobile phone does give you the combined view.
Excellent, thank you.
Yeah. The last bit here, I think, which is the QR code. So when you're running the HQ report, the QR code appears just in the bottom right corner. So the idea behind that is if it's on a screen, someone can go up and then just point their phone at it and then bring up the results at the HQ if they wanted to kind of start to slice and dice it themselves, or maybe their eyesight isn't quite so good. Also, if you tap the QR code, it will give you a bigger version. So if you set your event up in advance, you can then get this version, screen capture it, print it out, and put it on your sign-on table. That's what people tend to do it. So you can see as a rider comes to sign in and they say, oh, where are the results? They just point their phone at that. And that's it. And it will basically take them straight to the mobile view of the results, which they can then look at when they come in.
I also noticed that on the mobile view, you can tap to get the QR code. So if you're on the side of the road, you can share it. That's really
exactly
thoughtful,
right. Yeah, well spotted. So in the bottom right corner, there's a little link, which is a small QR code. If you tap that, it makes a bigger one. So you can then show your phone to another rider and say, this is where the results is, and they can point their phone at your phone as well. So yes, save the trees. That's what that's doing. I think that was the only thing I was going to show you, Lex, was just exporting results quickly. So any questions on what you've seen so far before we do the final piece?
Brilliant.
Yeah. Okay. So let me just move you here. Okay. So the last bit is, if I go back to my view. Okay, so now that we've got our training demo, you'll notice it's gone green. For those of you who are making notes, it's gone green because we published it. So I tap that, there's a button here that says export results. Now there's 2 formats you can export in. There is a result sheet format, which is basically contains a lot more information. So if you are running a series of club events, and maybe you are running a series of kind of competitions over the course of the season, something like that, and you just want to get all the information out with things like VTTA standards and those type of things, you would literally just click export. I'll probably do this now, actually. Let me see if I can do that. And it will then comes up like that, which is basically an Excel file of all the information with all the results we've entered, with everything you've got in the columns. So you would then do what you like with that. The other option is to create the export results. There's a CTT format. This is where you break it out again at the other end, which is Leon, to kind of close the loop on what you were saying about the multiple events. Because you have pulled in multiple events into a single result sheet event, to send the results back to the CTT, you have to break them back out again. So you actually have to do one export at a time. So I won't actually do this, but each CTT event has an event number, which is what appears at the top. You just basically do the reverse. So you'd select the one you want, click export, and it would create the CTT. Actually, yeah, I can do this. Let me just pick one. I don't know which is which. So let's try that. Potluck, here we go. Yeah. And then the it takes a bit of time because it needs to work it out, but then so it creates a file for each. So you do one export per event. So if you've got 3 events in the CTT, you create 3 exports and you upload them individually. And this is basically the format that the CTT understands. So it's a slightly different version. It's the same information from the event. So you would then take that, upload that to the CTT, and that would be it. So there's no need for rekeying or editing or any of that. Does that make sense in terms of the exporting back? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. All right. So I think that is basically all I had. So we've gone slightly over, but not too badly. So if I sort of stop there, it's now time for any other questions or things that you may or may want to see that have cropped up. So any thoughts, questions, feedback that you have in sort of before?
It's a really good solution, to be honest with you, Brent. It's good.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah.
Agreed. Yeah.
Thank you for launching the CTT bit this week.
I know. I have to be honest, I'm quite pleased with that, if I'm honest. It's worked out. The CTT have been really good, actually. They've sort of given it an API, so a proper way to connect to their stuff properly.
Excellent.
And having played with it, I actually did, like you said, Sarah, I did play around with your
That's fine.
50 because it's perfect timing. And it literally took about a minute and a half to set your event up. Whereas before, spreadsheets and exporting and reformatting and stuff, it's a bit of a...
I know, especially when you're tired after a day at work.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, thanks for that. It's good. Thanks, Leon. That's good. Good feedback. So yeah. Any other questions or thoughts?
Looks amazing. Just our next event in September, so I'll use it then. Give it a go.
Yeah. Okay. Fantastic. Great. So I think just to kind of summarize then. So what I'll do is I will send out the PDF version of the slides we've used. And I'll also have a play with the recording. I might sort of see how I can sort of chop that up a little bit, maybe to make it a little bit more succinct, and hopefully make that available. If you sign up for a result sheet account, it's all free. You get a link, or you can go to the result sheet website at the top there, to the result sheet community Facebook group. That's the idea behind that. Really, is it's sort of a closed environment where people can ask questions and things and have conversations with other people who are using it or interested in it, and then kind of benefit from other conversations people are having. That's kind of the idea. It's fairly new. So please go ahead and, if you want to join that, just request an invite and I'll accept you. And then we'll sort of see how that goes as well. So that's it. And obviously, if you've got any other questions, just contact us by the website and then happy to help.
It's good because this is the final link in the chain for me. So I've obviously ridden lots of events that we've used ResultSheet. A number of times I've keyed the results into the app,
Yeah.
for the timekeepers, but this year I haven't actually run an event. So, and now you've got the new application. It'd be excellent.
Yes. Yeah. Well, you've done it. You are probably the most experienced all-round result sheet user then, Sarah.
Well, when I did it last year, I did some photographs of it with my phone and did a sort of a 2-page how to do it for Kathy to give to other people when they, at Goodwood entering the results, because it is actually very simple. But I'm one of these people, it always helps to have you show a screen grab.
Yeah.
But obviously it then became out of date quite quickly.
Yeah. Well, good. Careful, don't raise your hand too high because people will be coming to you for advice.
They find you anyway.
Team. It's being recorded as well, so you're now the ResultSheet support team, Sarah. Thank you for volunteering.
It's all right. DCB's so well known; they naturally phone him.
Perfect. Okay. Excellent. Anything else from anyone else?
For me, all good.
All good. Great.
That's great. Thanks, Brett.
Okay.
Thank you, Simon. Brett.
Perfect. Great. All right. Have a good evening, all. Enjoy watching this for us. All right.
Thank you very much.
Bye.
Okay. Bye-bye. Bye.